Thanks for being a part of the Stark County High Impact Conference of 2021 and for joining this session on Failure is Not an Option. I am Susan Korey Hirko, a consultant with the State Support Team Region 9. We support school districts in Stark, Wayne, and Holmes counties to ensure each child in Ohio has access to a high-quality education. We focus on leadership and team development and inclusive instructional practices to assist districts and schools in improving outcomes for each child. Thank you for selecting this session. This is a topic I feel very passionate about, and I'm hopeful you do too. As a teacher, you likely work really hard to ensure your students successfully learn the content you set out to teach every day through intentional planning and delivery. However, you likely still have students who struggle and ultimately battle D's and F's. My purpose with this presentation is to draw attention to common practices that perpetuate failure, likely without necessarily intending to, and to highlight more promising practices that lead to learning and success. So let's get started with this video.
So you're telling me you can only give our guys 45 hours? That brings them to about there. Gentlemen, that's not acceptable. Gene, you gotta talk about power here. Whoa, guys!
Power is everything. Power is everything.
What do you mean?
Without it, they don't talk to us, they don't correct their trajectory, they don't turn the heat shield around. We gotta turn everything off. Now. They're not gonna make it to re-entry.
What do you mean, everything?
With everything on, the LEM draws 60 amps. At that rate, in 16 hours, the batteries are dead, not 45. And so's the crew. We gotta get them down to 12 amps.
12 amps? How many? You can't run a vacuum cleaner on 12 amps, John.
We gotta turn off. We have to turn off the radars, cabin heater, instrument displays, the guidance computer, the whole smash.
Whoa, guidance computer. What if they need to do another burn? Gene, they won't even know which way they're pointed.
The more time we talk down here, the more juice they waste up there. I've been looking at the data for the past hour.
That's the deal?
That's the deal.
Okay, John. And then we finish the burn, we'll power down the LEM.
All right.
Now, in the meantime, we're gonna have a frozen command module up there. In a couple days, we're gonna have to power it up using nothing but the re-entry batteries.
We've been tried before.
Hell, we've never even simulated it before, Gene.
Well, we're gonna have to figure it out. I want people in our simulators, working re-entry scenarios. I want you guys to find every engineer who designed every switch, every circuit, every transistor, and every light bulb that's up there. Then I want you to talk to the guy in the assembly line who actually built the thing. Find out how to squeeze every amp out of both of these goddamn machines. I want this marked all the way back to Earth with time to spare. We never lost an American in space. We're sure as hell not gonna lose one on my watch. Failure is not an option.
So hopefully we are all in agreement that failure is not an option for the students you serve. We have to ensure we're utilizing the best strategies, finding the best solutions, and doing everything possible so that each child can experience success with learning and feel competent and confident with challenging tasks. So here is a look at our topics for this session. We will look at the practices that perpetuate failure and determine why they are detrimental and create this cycle of failure. We will look at the power of growth mindset and how embracing errors can help students succeed. And we will look at the practices that promote learning and success. By the end, I'm hopeful that you will evaluate your practices and determine what you may want to stop, start, and continue. In the materials for this session, you will find a one-page Google Doc that has a link to the slide deck, participant guide, articles, and videos. The participant guide follows along with the presentation and provides space for you to note your key takeaways. This is completely optional and for your use only. Please make a copy if you wish to record electronically or print a copy if you would rather write your responses down. Also know that all the links to articles and videos are also included within the slide deck. So let's get started with a look at the practices that perpetuate failure and the detrimental effects they have on students. Remember to jot your key takeaways in the participant guide. So pause the presentation here and take a minute to read one or two or all three of the articles listed within the slide. You can jot down some of your key takeaways in your participant guide. The articles are also linked within the document with the materials. If you are watching this with several others, you may each want to take an article and share out your key findings with each other. So I want to dig a little deeper into growth mindset. Let's watch this video to learn how another school is embracing the idea.
What I've wanted to do with the organization, even more than create schools, is to perpetuate the idea of the growth mindset. There are very few limitations to what human beings can do at any age. The idea of it never being too late to turn your entire trajectory around is inspiring to me. We talk very little about innate ability. If we valued innate ability, we would have some sense of failure. The key variables in getting better at something are effort and time.
Whenever you check over your work, you're getting it right. That's a really good sign. Do you feel good about that? A little bit? Enough to smile? Okay, there we go. A little bit. All right. It's really helpful to catch kids when they make that conscious choice from doing the wrong thing to doing the right thing, and so celebrate that.
We pay attention to growth rather than achievement on many occasions. The kid who moves from a 40% performance to a 60% performance deserves a lot more recognition than a kid who moves from a 90 to a 95% performance. They're both valued because they both grew, but to see such enormous growth is really important.
And when you do that in mass, constantly focusing on what are those moments when you chose to grow and celebrate those, the difference is huge.
We have teachers that believe 100% in student growth, and they show that and demonstrate that in everything they do every day, all of the time.
Does the place that you live determine who you are?
So every adult here will tell you you can go to college. Every adult here will tell you if you work hard, you'll be successful. What I do when I go in the classroom is I give an observation. I note three things. One is what I want the teacher to keep doing. The next is what I want them to tweak. So slight changes I want them to make, and what they're
Believing you can do hard work is critical to doing the hard work, and understanding that you may not fully understand the first time around lends itself to perseverance. I know if I keep trying and working, I will understand it. I just don't fully understand yet, is a critical concept for all of us trying to learn something new. So think about the practices in your classroom, your building, or your district. What promotes a growth mindset, and what practices are in conflict with it? You can note your thoughts in the participant guide. So making mistakes is part of the learning process. When we believe that mistakes can be valuable teaching opportunities, when we can go deeper than seeing a mistake as wrong and taking points off, but seeing a mistake as an opportunity, it can become a powerful teaching tool. When students see us embrace mistakes, they will take more risks with their learning. We erase the stigma that comes along with mistakes or getting something wrong. Take a look at this classroom example and how they maximize mistakes.
Hi, my name is Leah Alcala. I teach 8th grade math, and this is my warm-up routine that I do with my students almost every day. I call it my favorite no. Okay. Good morning, you guys. Your warm-up is on the board. I'm going to hand out your index cards. I put a warm-up problem on the board, hand out index cards to all the kids, have them write their answer. I collect it, and then I sort it, and I say yes, no, yes, no. And I look for my favorite wrong answer or my favorite no, and we analyze that. 4 minutes to work on it. Everyone makes mistakes. We're going to see your mistakes, you're going to see my mistakes. But a mistake is your opportunity to share with me how much you understand. And if I don't know that you don't know something, I need to teach you before the test. The test is too late. And this is a great spot for me to teach you. Make sure your name is on your card. Put your pencil in your pencil slot and pass your cards to the center. I started my warm-up routine to replace clickers that a lot of classes are buying. So that was a clicker for each student. You ask a question, they lock in an answer. And then you look at your computer screen and you know what percentage of your students understand the problem. Well, we didn't have the money for that, so instead, okay, here we go. I thought, well, what if I gave everyone index cards, collected them real quick with their answers already written on it, and then I can just sort them as quick as possible and find out what percentage of my kids know the answer. No, yes. Costs 40 cents instead of $15,000. Yes, so we have quite a few yeses and some very interesting no's. 1, 2, 3. I then took that a step further, something I couldn't do with clickers. Look at the ones who are getting it wrong. How far are they from getting it right? And showing that work to the other kids. Okay, my favorite no. Someone wrote this. I say it's my favorite no because I want the kids to first of all recognize what they're about to see is wrong. And I want them to recognize that there's something good in the problem. Like there's a mistake, but it's my favorite no because it showed some good math. So that's the wrong answer. But they did some things that I love. What in that problem am I happy to see? We always talk about what's right first, so that if it's any student's work, they are like, oh, I did do that right. There's a mistake, but the mistake didn't ruin the whole thing. What do I like about this problem? Gavin.
Well, they distributed both with the 4x and the -2.
Very nice. And what? Today's lesson was on factoring, so I needed to make sure they understood how to distribute. They distributed, and what lets you know that they distributed? David?
How there are no more parentheses.
There are no more parentheses, and they didn't just drop the parentheses. So they're asked to distribute a term with a variable. They're asked to distribute twice. They're asked to distribute a term with a negative sign, which is often a very common mistake that kids make. And my students do not. Like, I have 3 years of CST data now to show that one mistake my students do not make is distributing a negative, which is amazing because they used to all the time. Distributing -2 to -6 is +12. And that was one mistake I was absolutely looking for and I did not see, which made me very happy. Not until the very end, as we've gone over different sections of the problem that are right, that I will then ask, okay, now what is incorrect? What does this person not understand? Where's the mistake? If I get a third of my class raising their hand, ready to tell me the mistake, it's pretty high engagement at that point. Mia?
Like 4x times 2x equals 8x squared.
Very nice. This 4x times 2x multiplies to 8x squared. Can someone convince me of that? How do we know that 4x times 2x is 8x squared? My low-level students are very engaged. They feel like they're not getting penalized for being wrong. They're not being made fun of. I'm not looking at them. No, there's no peer pressure at this point. But they're like, wow, that's my mistake. And now I understand. It's very comforting. I mean, I feel very with my kids at all times. I'm not surprised by what they don't know. They're not surprised by what they don't know. It's how it should be. It creates more of a dialogue with me and them.
So there are many practices that can lead to learning and less failure. I am highlighting here, 6 here. Some of them are often misunderstood. Some may feel overwhelming to put into practice, and some just need a little bit of reflection to ensure that we are implementing them in a way that is going to give us the best results. So use your participant guide to note your key takeaways for each. So let's get started with gold standard practice. Here's a common scenario. The teacher explains a problem or concept at the board, assigns homework or practice work. The next day, the work is checked for completion. Perhaps the answers are provided, or the student turns the work in and receives a grade or feedback several days later, often after the teacher has moved on from that particular concept. So what's different about gold standard practice? Well, it includes 3 characteristics. Immediate on-the-spot feedback. So the student knows exactly where they are in their learning process and where they are going next. They receive explicit coaching so they can become better and stronger at a skill or concept. And it provides differentiation using the Goldilocks approach. The practice isn't too easy, the practice work isn't too hard, but it is just right. They aren't bored, they aren't frustrated, but they are in the right zone for learning. So let's watch a video on what good coaching looks like.
What separates the good coaches, and then you get the, hey, this guy's a pretty good coach, or this guy's, okay, just another guy.
Yeah, I think the best coaches that I have had were,
besides myself,
besides Bob, of course, which you would fall into the great coach category. I think the best coaches that I've had understand that not every player, not every person learns the same way. And so they have a high level of emotional intelligence to be able to see their athlete and to be able to understand, hey, this player, he learns best when I draw up on the board. Hey, this player learns best when I tell him what to do. Hey, oh, this player learns best when I show him film of exactly what I want to see from him. This player learns best when I make him take notes in his notebook. Oh, this player learns best when I make him put flashcards together. Like, understanding how to get the most out of your players comes down to learning what they learn in the manner of the best. Like, how do they learn something the quickest? I think that is so important. And I think the other part is understanding techniques can be different for different players, but understanding how to take the technique that you want to see and fitting it to that player's skill sets. Because, my pass set might look a little bit different than Mitchell Schwartz's pass set, than David Bakhtiari's pass set, but that's okay, because there's a lot of ways to skin a cat. But how do I, as a coach, lean on my experience and help that player get better without just making him try to look like what I think he needs to look like? Because there's a lot of different ways that you can pass set, that you can run block, that can be very effective, and finding the best way for that player, how that guy's bone structure is built, how that guy's athleticism is expressed in his body. I think those are all things that make a great coach.
So let's talk about feedback. A couple things about feedback. When used correctly, a student can make almost 2 years growth in 1 year's time. So it only makes sense to use it and use it correctly. It should tell a student and you, the teacher, where they are now and where they are going next. It should be timely, like immediate, because it's most relevant and applicable when it comes after the moment. When it's days or weeks, it is no longer relevant anymore, and students may not even read it or pay attention to it. In addition, it should never be associated with a grade. One, because it's all about continuing the learning. They haven't mastered it yet. You're giving them the feedback so they can master it. And if it's associated with a grade, the student will only pay attention to the grade and not the feedback. It should also be specific. If you utilize learning intentions and success criteria or learning targets, the feedback should be aligned specifically to those. If you don't have learning intentions or learning targets, I would strongly consider implementing these. They provide both clarity to you and to the students of what is supposed to be learned. And if the students are not clear on what they are learning, it can create a huge barrier. If you are unsure if your targets are clear, a quick test you can do is ask your students. If they reply with what they are doing, if what they are doing reflects the activity that they are completing, chances are they don't know why they are doing it. They don't know what they are supposed to be learning. If they respond with the learning target or the learning intention, then they likely know what they are learning and where they are within the process. They may not know why, but that's also equally important to explain why they are learning the content they are learning. So evaluation is not an end, but the starting point for making decisions about where we go next. When we start to think about evaluation in this manner, assessment starts to drive the teaching, and students are not receiving failing grades for content they are still learning. So if you are grading assessments, formative assessments, and returning assessments after you have moved on, then it's not really informing your teaching. Save yourself the valuable time you are using to grade and spend that time analyzing who needs more time, more experience, more practice with a particular skill, and who is ready to move on. And then spend the time on designing quality and relevant learning experiences for your students. Formative assessments can be super quick. You may use a dry erase board to have them express what they know. They may do a thumbs up, thumbs down. In-class practice work, listening to students, dialogue about math problems or about other content or situations might help you really understand where they are within their learning and pinpoint misconceptions, misunderstandings, and errors. That gives you the opportunity to correct them. Formative assessment does not have to be paper pencil. It should be quick. It should go back to that learning target or that learning intention. And again, it should guide exactly what to teach next. So don't hit stop when you get to this slide. This doesn't have to get complicated. It can be a very efficient use of time where instruction is much more effective for your students because they are learning exactly what they are ready to learn now. It connects to the Goldilocks analogy. It's not too easy, it's not too hard, it's just right. About 40 to 60% of what we teach kids, they already know. These kids may have high achievement but low progress. And for others, they may not be ready to advance to a harder concept. And if they aren't, we will lose them and they will continue to fall farther and farther behind. So take a unit, map out those learning intentions or those learning targets, and move kids along the unit accordingly. This may require less whole group and more time spent in small groups or individually working with students. Depending on where kids are, they could be working independently or they could be working with a partner. You may have several ways for students to learn each learning intention, and so students are busy on different content depending on their journey through the unit. However, each student is receiving grade level content. This slide is not enough to support you in implementing self-paced learning. However, it may spark an area you want to learn more about. And maybe you're not going to go all in right away, but you may find there are some small changes and adaptations you could do to move more towards this model and away from a ready or not, here we go approach. At the end of this presentation, you will find a slide with more information, so articles and podcasts that will help support a little bit more around self-paced learning. Acceleration. So a few things about acceleration. The rate of learning increases when we focus on less more deeply. Do you find yourself thinking or saying, we don't have time? Are you racing the clock every day? Think, are you going through the motions or are your students truly learning and retaining? We know there are way more standards than time. We can never teach them all in a way that results in lasting learning. So it's worth filtering through the standards and determining what is most essential that students learn and focus on ensuring students have a strong foundation or surface knowledge. Then you can go deeper and make connections to concepts. And lastly, you will have the time to focus on students transferring that learning to other contexts. When students can do that, then they have truly learned it. And it's not a concept that's here today and gone tomorrow. When we take a telescope focus, we can align the right supports with a selection of evidence-based practices that we know align to the gap in the student's skills or content knowledge. We can have aligned assessments that assess each learning intention and drive instruction and intervention. So less is definitely more. More learning, more supports that work, and more progress. Engagement. So if students are not engaged, they are not learning. Almost half of students say school is boring. They are likely are zoned out and nothing is sticking. Almost half like a challenge. So think about, are they engaged with real world problems to relate to? Can they problem solve these real world problems? Purpose is definitely a necessity. And how many times have you heard, why do we need to learn this? And will this be on the test? So if you are hearing this, chances are your students are not seeing any purpose in what they are learning. And when the brain does not see purpose in what they are learning, it actually sees no reason to pay attention. So if students are engaged and connect learning with their lives, they are 14 times more likely to be academically motivated. This makes it worth all the time it takes to make those connections to purpose and engagement. We can't afford not to. So many practices that perpetuate failure have been around for many, many years. And even though they don't work or are punitive and do not encourage learning, we still find them prevalent in our schools. Over the next 5 slides, you will find lists of practices from the industrial age that we know no longer work, and you will find brain-based practices that we know, if implemented, support students in their learning and success. See if you can find at least one practice on each slide that you will start cultivating in your classroom, building, or district. What can you advocate for? What can you inform others about? How can you see these transforming the school experience for your students? Use your participant guide to note the practices that you want to start, stop, or continue. So take a minute to read the practices that reflect how we continuously learn and adapt from our experiences. What would you want to start, stop, or continue? Look at the practices that support errors and mistakes. Look at the practices that impact learning, depending on how we measure it. Remember to note in your participant guide what you would want to stop, start, and continue. And here are practices that either support or hinder students constructing their own understanding of the world. What would you want to stop, start, or continue? And lastly, look how expectations can really impact performance. So think about what you just learned from practices that perpetuate failure, automatic failure practices, or grading practice work, Think about growth mindset and the role it plays in your classroom or building. Think about the promising practices of gold standard practice, feedback, formative assessment, self-paced learning, acceleration, and engagement. What would you definitely want a team member of yours to share? And what would you like to share with them? Jot down a few notes in your participant guide. So you probably don't need reminding, but I want you to remember you can do hard things. Take a look at the video. Was this you at any point this year?
(2021) school year. School year no one really saw coming, except for maybe the devil, because this is definitely his work. What we're doing every single day to make sure that children get an education during a pandemic, it's
Can we please just make sure that it covers our facial openings? I'm not gonna make it to June, guys. I need a nap.
This is rough. A year ago, I had no idea what the word synchronous meant.
All right, so yesterday when you guys were at home learning, because now you're in school learning, it's not confusing at all. Google, help me Google. Welcome everybody online. And those of you that are actually in the classroom, because the best part of teaching is doing both remote and in person at the same time. Awesome, this is going great, right? I feel really good about this whole thing.
Literally switching the way that we teach week to week, day to day, hour to hour. But now I do it all day, every day.
I've got my group banana in here today. Group anchovies is at home, so that's fun. It's literally a surprise to me who shows up every day.
If early 2020 Miss Smith saw 2021 Miss Smith.
All right, so let's open up our books to page. Did someone just cough? Did you? Was that you? Where did my mask go? Oh, it's on my face. But what day is it? Your brother tested positive for corona. Why are you here? I'm just gonna call the nurse really quick.
She would probably be horrified at the things that are happening on a daily basis in order to make this possible.
Let's see, it's our 5-minute disinfectant time. You put it up over your orifices. They have things coming out of them that I don't want. I'm just gonna go into that corner and have a little time out because, wow, is this hard.
A year ago, a child would sneeze all over me. Like, we're talking sneeze explosion all over me, and I'd be like, it happens. I'd walk through someone's cough cloud that they didn't cover up, and I'd be like, it's a Tuesday. But now?
Who sneezed? Wait. Did you just cough? Did you sneeze? Was it you?
A year ago, I never sanitized the shared supplies, but now?
You don't have a pencil? I can't let you borrow a pencil because, all right, let's disinfect some pencils, I guess.
A year ago, I would walk into my classroom and be like, it's a normal day. Everyone should be here. Now?
How are you guys? I haven't seen you in like 5 days because the schedule's crazy. Tomorrow we're remote. And then the next day we're remote again. And then, so if we're remote that day, is that week 2 or 1? What date is today?
A year ago, the worst thing that I would forget is my keys. Now the worst thing that I forget?
I have to go get my kids from recess duty. Forgot a mask? Forgot a mask. Oh no, I forgot to post that assignment. I've got 30 seconds. Oh my gosh, I forgot to start the Google Meet for the kids who are at home. Where's my mask? Okay, my mask, okay.
You all are heroes.
So if you could do that and what you did this past year, you can definitely do at least one of these. So think about, are there some practices that you will stop that are perpetuating failure? Is there a practice, at least one promising practice that you can start for next year? Is there something that you will advocate for change within your building, your classroom, your district? And can you change the trajectory for students who need it the most? So here are some of those additional resources I referenced to help you on your journey. There's some articles and some great podcasts. If you want to talk through anything from this presentation, join me for the unconference session on June 16th from 9:30 to 10. You will find the link in the slide deck and on the materials list. Thanks and have a great summer.